Okay. Few announcements before we begin. Next week is our lab exam 3. We are here at week 10. I kind of told you we're in overdrive mode, and it may not seem like it yet, but oh boy, will it seem like it next week. Week 10, we're going to cover the heart and the blood vessels today. Next week, we will finish up this module and cover the lymphatic system and the respiratory system. Next week, we have a lab exam. The week after that, look at what we have the week after that. November 6th is a lecture exam. It's coming at you. The next lecture exam is going to be on 5 chapters. The blood, the heart, the blood vessels, lymphatic, respiratory. Okay. Then the week of November 13th, Monday lab, you have a holiday. You say yay now. But you're going to be behind a lab. Oh. Okay. Because then we're going to come, the rest of us are going to come to the lab and lecture that week. Lecture, lab exam, lecture exam at the end of, it's going to be like this. Veterans Day, all of a sudden it's Thanksgiving holiday. You're going to get nothing done that week. You come back from Thanksgiving holiday, that's finals week. Putting this all into perspective now for 2 major reasons. One, I hate to say this, but you need to get on it. If you're not on it, get on it. Number 2, look at what it says in the red there. After our next lecture exam, you will know what standing you are in my class. If dropping is the best decision for you by the end of week 12, you have until November 10th to do that. I would not wait until November 10th to do it. I had somebody wait till November 10th. The technology system went down at Santa Ana College. It didn't get back up until November 11th. Guess what? They didn't get a W. They got an F. Things to think about. It's coming at us fast. Very, very fast. Everybody take an index card out right now. I need everyone to take an index card out right now. On the back of your index card. On the back of your index card, here's what I need of you. Do you see? November 6th. That is our lecture exam. You see what we have scheduled on this. Okay. This is your choice right now. I need you to vote on the back of your card. If you do not vote, I don't want to hear about it. That you complain that we voted without you, made plans with you. So for those of you guys who I'm recording who are not here, tough cookies. November 6th. Option A. We come in 7:35. We do a lecture exam review. We take our lecture exam starting at 9. You have until 10:30 to finish it. That's option 1, just like it's written. So if that's what you want, on the back of your index card, write review yes. You want to review that day, right? Review yes. Option B, come in, take the exam, go home. Review no. For option B. At the end of today, when I accept your cards, I'm going to tally this up and I will tell you what the results are next week. So you have a week to prepare. So your options are review yes. We won't take the exam until 9. Review no. You come in 7:35, you take the exam, you're done by 9 that day. Review yes or review no. You guys are voting. That's what I have scheduled. If you guys don't vote, vote doesn't go well, we're going to stick to this plan. Those are your options for November 6th. Come in, take the exam, go home, review no. If you want to review, we'll start the lecture going over things that may show up on the exam, but it will be last minute. It It will be last minute. It might help rejuvenate the juices before you take the exam. You decide. Review yes, review no. On the back of your card. That make sense? Yeah. Good. Let's vote. While you guys are voting, I'm gonna get myself ready for our lecture exam. Lecture. Technically, yeah, we're getting ready for the lecture exam. It's technically not a lie. It's just bad wording. Before I forget, any questions about the logistics of the class that's reading time? Your study guide is your reading guide, right? For the last exam, you're gonna get it next week because I didn't finish it. I could not finish it on time. You'll get it next week.
Say the vote is no, would you still post beforehand what you would have reviewed so we can review it?
All that's the reading guide. Okay, it's up to you guys whether you want the review or not. Do you want to come in and go? No. Do you want to come in, review, stay till the end of class and have your time at the end of class to take the exam? Review? Yes. Up to you. Okay, up to you. We're going to continue our endeavor through the cardiovascular system. Okay, let me just make sure I am recording. It is recording. Okay. And we're going to move on to the heart. Last week, we talked about the blood, how it works, what cells it's made of. Don't forget the blood is a tissue. Be able to define why blood is a tissue. The heart, who can remind me which cavity the heart is in? Oh my goodness, we're going back to like lecture 1. The pericardium. It is actually the pericardial cavity. You need to know what the difference between the pericardial cavity and the pericardium is now. We're going to talk about it. The heart is shown on the right-hand side, and the heart can be tricky. You must remember that all parts labeled in the heart are in anatomical position from your patient's point of view. This region in blue, is this the right side or the left side of your patient? This is the right. It is your left, but it's your patient's right. This is crucial, folks. I told you about Wayne's World, dude. He had somebody operate on this artery when they were supposed to operate on this artery. Whoops. That whole team lost their careers. Not just one person, the whole team. You would think they would have, but you would think, but it still happens. What does your heart do? What is the heart's primary objective? Pumps blood throughout the body. It moves the blood so the blood can transport the materials that it transports. The heart pumps blood, and there are 2 circuits. There's your pulmonary circuit and your systemic circuit. And I need you to know which one is which. The pulmonary circuit goes to the pulmones. What are the pulmones, folks? The lungs. So from your heart, this sends the blood to the lungs and back to the heart. It goes like this. Why does the blood get sent to the lungs from the heart? Just to get oxygen? To do gas exchange. Gas exchange. That is the pulmonary circuit. It is short. The pulmonary arteries. Are they oxygenated or deoxygenated? They are deoxygenated. Arteries going to the lungs. The pulmonary arteries are deoxygenated. Don't you forget that. The arteries that go to the lungs are deoxygenated. Folks, does that mean they have no oxygen in them? The better word is that they are oxygen poor. They have oxygen in them. Deoxygenated to me always sounds like they have absolutely no oxygen into them. That is not true. They're oxygen poor. They have low oxygen. The pulmonary veins. Are they oxygenated or deoxygenated? Okay, the pulmonary veins are O2 rich. They are oxygenated. Look at the pulmonary circuit. I'm going to tell you how many of you guys, I'm going to give you a percent. How many of you guys, after I've told you this today, are going to get this wrong? It's going to make me sad if it's more than 5%. The most common misconception out there is all arteries are oxygenated. Is that true? No. Look at the pulmonary look at the pulmonary arteries. They're oxygen poor. All veins are deoxygenated. That is not true. Look at the pulmonary veins. They're oxygen rich. What does arteries means? What does veins means? We'll talk about that the second half of lecture today. This is what we're used to. Systemic arteries are oxygen rich. Systemic veins are oxygen poor. This is what we're used to. What is the systemic system? That is when your body sends the blood pretty much to everything else. So it leaves the aorta, it goes down to the legs, it goes to the stomach, it goes to the arms. That is the systemic circuit. Going to everything except the lungs. All other tissues except the lungs. I need you to know what the difference between the pulmonary and systemic circuit are. Well, we'll repeat this when we do blood vessels later today. But this is what the heart does. The heart's job is to pump the blood through both circuits. Just like everything else, the heart has 3 major layers. I need you to know what the major tissues are in each one of them. The pericardial cavity is the cavity that the heart sits in. The pericardium is the membrane that surrounds the heart. Here we have the pericardium in pink, and it surrounds the heart. The pericardium holds pericardial fluids inside. That area in black is filled with pericardial fluids. Why do you think you want a fluid that surrounds the heart in a nice little sac? It's responsible for lubricating your heart. It would build friction otherwise as it beats and rubs up against the surrounding organs. How often does your heart beat? You guys are young. It should be not that high. 60 to 80 beats per minute, 24/7. Your whole life. It needs lubrication so it doesn't overheat. That's what the pericardial sac is for. It holds pericardial fluids. When I take a cut of the walls of the heart, it's shown there. Here are your 3 layers. On the outside, this is your pericardium. Peri, wrapper, cardium, heart. It wraps the heart. There are 2 layers to this. There are 2 pericardial layers. The first one, you see one that's attached to all the cardiac muscle. This layer right here in yellow. That is the first layer of the pericardium. And I hate this, but it has 2 names. The name that makes the most sense. This is your visceral pericardium. The visceral pericardium is on the surface, literally touching the surface of the heart. It is also called the epicardium. Why anatomists do this? I don't know. Then you have another layer. This one. This one is not the visceral pericardium. This one is the parietal pericardium. This one doesn't have a second name. Both pericardia, both of them, they are the ones that are going to make the space where your pericardial fluids sit. That is where the pericardial fluids is sitting, in that yellow area there. The fluids of the pericardium. The lubricant. So your pericardium makes 2 layers. The visceral pericardium, the parietal pericardium. Both of them are primarily made of one tissue. Both pericardium are primarily made of dense, regular connective tissue. They will also have dense, irregular connective tissue. They will have both. They make the outer part of the heart. The inner layer of the heart, where you have all of your cardiac muscles. This is called the myo for muscle, the myocardium. The myocardium is going to be made of many muscle tissues. What's the primary muscle tissue there? It's the only muscle tissue there. There'll be other tissues in there. There's going to be the intercalated disc. And the intercalated discs are going to be connected to nervous tissue at some point. They're going to be connected to nervous tissue. So the myocardium will also hold nervous tissue. What are these? What's that red and blue? Red and blue, red and blue. They're blood what? Blood vessels. And what tissues do we find in blood vessel? Simple squamous and blood connective tissue. You have blood CT found in the heart. That makes sense. And simple squamous ET in the blood vessels. Look how many tissues we've named. Heart's clearly an organ. It's a crucial organ. Then we have this layer here. This one's this yellow one. This is the inner layer. This is the inner wall. That one is the endocardium. Primarily made, let me write that again because it's kind of light on there. The endocardium, primarily made of dense regular CT. There's a lot of tissues that we can find in the heart, folks. The most inner layer, the endocardium. The middle layer, myocardium. And the outer layer, the pericardium. Those are the three major layers of the heart walls. When I ask you, what is the primary histology of the myocardium? Primary. What is the answer? Cardiac muscle tissue. Cardiac muscle tissue. Cardiac muscle tissue is clear as day. You guys should have seen this in lab already because it has the intercalated discs. Those intercalated discs, what they're designed to do is send the signal rapidly through the muscles. They send an action potential super fast through cardiac muscle. Why? So the heart beats in uniform. It contracts in a uniform fashion. That is very important. That is why cardiac muscle is the only muscle with intercalated discs. What is the histology? What are you going to tell me? The primary histology of the visceral pericardium. Dense, regular CT. Make sure you know which one the visceral pericardium is. The one that's in contact with the cardiac muscle. The visceral pericardium. Oh, sorry, I'm thinking the endocardium. You're right. Primary and it's regular. Look at how the heart sits in. And again, Remember these black spaces that's surrounding the heart, that is the pericardium. That is that sac, this membrane that holds those fluids. Do not forget the function of the pericardium is to hold fluids so it can lubricate the heart. Because look at how close contact it is with the lungs. It is literally sitting within the lungs. The lungs have their own fluids surrounding it. Well, we'll talk about that next week. That will help lubricate them as well. Because they're both constantly contracting to keep you alive. Without those fluids, they would generate heat and pretty much overheat. Nice knowing you. There are major vessels of the heart that we must familiarize ourselves with. The major arteries. We're going to start with the arteries. Here's the first one, the artery. This one is the aorta, and the aorta is broken up into a few parts. You have the ascending aorta, which is moving the blood up and out of the heart. You have the aortic arch. And then going down, and keep in mind, it is going down behind the heart. It's going to go down to your tissues. That is the descending aorta. So the aorta is a large artery that is associated with the heart. The other artery here is this one, number 2. This one is your pulmonary trunk. That one moves the blood out of the heart, and it's going to move it into the lungs via the pulmonary arteries. You have the right and left pulmonary arteries. They start at the pulmonary trunk. The left one goes to the left. The right one goes to the right lung. The left one goes to the left lung. Both of those are arteries, folks. The aorta and the pulmonary trunk. This one is a vein. It is one of the largest veins in the body. That is your superior vena cava, vena cava. Both are used. This one, coming from the bottom, is your inferior vena cava. This one's the superior vena cava. No, you don't get to abbreviate. So you have the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. Cava, cava. I'm going to say both. You're going to hear both. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 pulmonary veins. Those are the major 4 blood vessels: the aorta, pulmonary trunk, the vena cava, pulmonary veins. They're associated with the heart, but there are different parts to them. You need to know how those work, how they're connected. When you take a frontal section of the heart, this is what it looks like. And there are 4 major chambers in the heart. Here is 1 chamber. Here is 2 chambers. 3 chambers, 4 chambers. Let's start with number 1. It is this chamber. This holds blood as it moves through the heart. Is that on your right or left side? That is the right atrium. What is number 4 called? The left atrium. The atrium are where blood enters the heart. Chamber number 2, much bigger than 1 and 4. This one, what side is it on? This is your right ventricle. So what is chamber number 3 called? The left ventricle. The ventricles are where blood leaves the heart. We're going to put it out all together in a little bit. I need you to be able to label the major vessels and the chambers of the heart. We're going to move on. When we look at the frontal section, just like this one, we clearly see 4 valves. And the 4 valves, their jobs are to separate the chambers and the blood vessels. Starting with valve number 1, this one right here. This one separates the right atrium and the right ventricle. Chamber number 2 separates the left atrium and left ventricle. Chambers 1 and 2 are called AV valves. What do you think AV means? Atrioventricular. Valves 1 and 2 separate the atria and the ventricles. One's on the left side, one's on the right side, two's on the left side. So on the right side, valve number 1 is your tricuspid valve. It's tricuspid because when you look at it, it has 3 walls. Can't see it on most drawings. You'll see it when we're doing a cow heart dissection. Hopefully we have cow hearts to see that. Tricuspid valve. The second valve, for whatever reason, has 2 names. Bicuspid valve. It has 2 cusps, 2 walls. And it's also called the mitral valve. Why they call this, I know, but I don't know why they use both names. What does the mitral mean? Mitral means it has this shape. That's what mitral means. It's the shape. That's what the 2 walls of the bicuspid valve looks like. And if you look, we have a prominent figurehead who wears a mitral hat. Who wears the mitral hat? The Pope. That is why you will remember the mitral valve, just like the Pope, is never right. That's what my anatomy instructor told me, and I will never forget it. And he taught at a Catholic school. The other valves. you have this one here. That one's we're going to label number 3. And then you have this one here. That one's going to be number 4. Valves 3 and 4. Oh, can't really see that. Valves 3 and 4 are semi-lunar valves because they look like half moons. They literally look like 2 butt cheeks. Valve number 3. It separates the ventricle, the right ventricle, and the pulmonary trunk. It's the divider between those two. Therefore, valve number 3 is your pulmonary valve. Valve number 4 separates the left ventricle, and you really don't see it, but it separates the aorta. So valve number 4 is your aortic valve. When you go through that valve, you go behind that and you come out this way. So valve number 4 is called the aortic valve. The right ventricle here and the pulmonary trunk here. That is what the pulmonary valve separates. And just like the title of this slide, the valves separate either the chambers and vessels. Veins. How are veins classified? They always move blood towards the heart. Veins, I want you to think about this word. Venous returns the blood towards the heart. Some veins are oxygenated. Most veins are deoxygenated. So there are 2 major vessels that are major large veins in the heart. This one right here, what is that one called? Inferior vena cava. What is this one called? Superior vena cava. And where do they return the blood to which chamber? So this one's going to go in that way, and this one's going to go in that way. They are both going to return the blood to the right atrium. Those are 2 major veins that return the blood to the right atrium. Those return deoxygenated blood. That's why they're shown in blue. The other set of veins that returns blood to the heart, you have 2 on this side. Come on. And 2 on this side. And they are red. Why? Because they're returning from the pulmones, from the pulmonary system. These are your pulmonary veins. They are oxygen rich. They are returning to the heart. And which chamber do they go into? Into the left atrium, right here. So they return the blood into different chambers. The right atrium receives deoxygenated blood. The left atrium, oxygenated blood. So if veins return the blood to, if veins are blood vessels that return the blood to the heart, what are arteries? Away from the heart. Arteries away. When blood is pumped out of the ventricle, and particularly the right ventricle, the blood is going to go through that valve into the pulmonary trunk. That's an artery. Out the right pulmonary artery. And the left pulmonary artery. Here in the center, this is the pulmonary trunk before it splits to become the two arteries. They do, but we're not gonna work because there's different names to this because there's 4 of them. So we're not gonna get as complicated on those as we do with the pulmonary arteries. Why? I need you to understand that the pulmonary trunk is one major artery that splits to become the left and right pulmonary arteries. Blood that is in the left ventricle is going to go out that valve into the aorta. Some of the blood will go down, some of the blood goes up depending on where it's going to the body. That is your aorta sending the blood away from the heart. That is oxygen rich. That's why it's shown in red. Folks, blood is never blue. Never, ever, ever will it turn blue. Despite what people tell you, it is never blue. They are shown blue to represent deoxygenated and red oxygenated. People think when you cut somebody open, the blood in there is going to be blue. No. Nope. Dark red, light red. Which blood vessels are oxygen rich, folks? Which one? The pulmonary veins and the aorta. Both of those carry oxygen rich blood that are associated with the heart. I didn't say towards, away, just which one carries oxygen rich blood. We have to be able to describe the pathway of a drop of blood, how it gets through the heart. So if we have a drop of blood right here, what chamber is it in? The right atrium. That is number 1. When that right atrium contracts, where's that blood going to go to? It's going to move into the right ventricle. So when it moves into the right ventricle, which valve does it have to pass through? Which one? Thank you. I didn't. It is the bicuspid valve. Tricuspid. Testing you guys. It's late. Tricuspid. From the right ventricle, where does it go to next? What is that structure? The pulmonary trunk, the pulmonary arteries, then to the lungs. Okay, so to get to the lungs, it has to go through which valve first? The pulmonary valve. I'm gonna write valve. And it's gonna go through which vessels? It has to get through the pulmonary trunk and then the pulmonary arteries before it gets to the lungs. In blue, oxygen pour, oxygen pour. What happens at the lungs? Gas exchange. You redump CO2 to breathe it out. And your blood picks up oxygen. So oxygen-rich blood returns to the heart. How does that oxygen-rich blood return to the heart? It goes in through which vessels? What are those? The pulmonary veins. So it has to go through the pulmonary veins to get into the left atrium. So now we're here. This blood is now oxygen rich. That's why it's shown here in red. It is O2 rich. From the left atrium, where does it go to next? The left ventricle. So it's going to go this way. And when it goes through that way, which valve does it pass? Bicuspid. What's the other name for the bicuspid? Or mitral valve. Either name is going to work. Once it's here, where is it going to go through? What is that structure called? The aortic what? Valve. And it's going to go out the aorta. It's going to go to your tissues. The systemic circuit. So when it leaves the left ventricle, it first has to leave. I already forgot what colors I'm using. For valves, I'm using purple. It has to leave the aortic valve. Once it leaves the aortic valve, it is going to go out the aorta and another series of arteries to get to your body, the systemic circuit. This is every tissue besides lung tissue. Once it returns, so it went to the tissues, like let's say it went to your legs. It can either return that blood vessel. What is that blood vessel? Let's say it went to your head. That's going to go through that blood vessel, the superior vena cava, and return the blood and do it all over again. So the blood vessel here is either your superior or inferior vena cava to return the blood and to do it all over again. I need you to be able to describe the pathway of the blood through the heart. If the blood is in the left ventricle, which valve is it going to go through next? Which chamber or blood vessel is it going to go to next? That's how I award these types of questions. So that was part of the pulmonary and systemic circuit. This circuit is specific to supply blood to the heart. Yes, your heart muscles need fresh blood so that they can do their thing. So off of the aorta, you have two vessels that come off of the aorta. This one goes to the right side of the heart. This one goes to the left side of the heart. That is your right coronary artery. That one is your left coronary artery. These are blood vessels that supply the walls of the heart with fresh blood. Right here, the left coronary artery ends and it splits into two. It branches into two arteries. The one that goes in the front of the heart. Oh, the name of this one. Anterior run out of space, ventricular artery. This artery is on the front side and it is in between the two ventricles. This is the widowmaker. Why? When it gets plugged up with plaque and there's a blockage here, all of this part of the heart doesn't get fresh blood and it starts to die. That's a heart attack. This blood vessel that branches off and goes around this way is the oh, I forget that one doesn't show well. Is the circumflex artery. It goes to the back of the heart. Those are the four major heart arteries I need you to be familiar with. Just the ones in the front. Don't worry about the ones in the back. They supply fresh blood to the walls of the heart. The cardiac muscles need fresh blood all the time. What's your blood pressure supposed to be at? 120/80. What are the units? Millimeters of mercury. What does the 120 mean? Systolic pressure. What is the 80? Diastolic pressure. I need you to know what this means. When the atria contract, do you see the atria contracting right there? They're red. You see the arrows? When the atria contract, this is atrial systole. What are they doing? They're increasing the pressure inside of the chamber. Where does the blood go when the atria contract? Where does the blood go to when the atria contract, folks? Into the ventricles. This doesn't affect your blood pressure at your arteries. Doesn't affect it. It only affects the pressure in the heart. When your ventricles contract, here the ventricles are contracting. So here you have ventricular systole, but the valves, the semilunar valves, are still closed. Oh, that's a bad color. Closed, closed. The pressure is what we call preloading. The pressure is going to build up. Once the pressure gets high enough, those valves open. So here we have true ventricular systole. We call this ventricular ejection. It is systole. When the ventricles contract, where does the blood go to? Into your pulmonary trunk and into your aorta. This pressure that's created going into the blood vessels is this number right here. When the ventricles eject the blood into your blood vessels, that is what you're detecting at your arm. The blood pressure created during ventricular ejection. Blood pressure is high at that moment, at that given moment. The blood is leaving the heart, therefore the blood pressure is high in your brachial artery. Where's your brachial artery? The one that's right here. That's the one that they measure. Where do you measure it in a baby? You can't measure it there. You'll crush baby's arm if you measure it there. On your femoral artery. So baby's femoral artery, kids and adults, brachial artery. Everything else, right here, this is when the heart is relaxing. The muscles are relaxing. This is called diastole. And that's just overall diastole. There is ventricular diastole and atrial diastole. I'm not going to test you on that. I want you to be able to tell me that diastole means the muscles are relaxing. When the muscles are relaxing, that's that pressure. So where does that pressure come from? The artery walls. The walls of the artery create diastolic pressure. When your ventricles contract, they create systolic pressure. I need you to be able to tell me which describes which. Which pressure is caused by what? When you get into physio, oh boy, will you remember this and wish it was this easy. What gets those parts of the walls of the heart to contract? You have two bundles of nervous tissue. The SA node. What does it stand for? I heard it. Sinoatrial node. That literally means it lives in the sinus of the atrium. You see how this one's in the atrium and atrium only? SA node. This node is called the AV node. What does the AV node stand for? Atrioventricular node. It is between the atrium and the ventricles. The SA node is usually called the first one. Both of these nodes are holding cells that are pacemakers. So what do you think they do? They what? They signal what? To cells to start contracting. Let's see if I can spell this right. They set the rhythm. Hate that word. They set the rhythm, the heart rate. Okay. So they will beat at a certain frequency. How often should they beat? You guys should be 60 to about 75 beats per minute at rest. So the SA node sets that pace. Then it sends when it sends electrical signal, it goes this way. It'll go that way. It'll go to the AV node. Those that I drew in yellow are your internodal branches. They connect the nodes. Internodal branch. I forgot the N. But I need you to understand this. As the action potentials move through those internodal branches, guess what they tell the walls of the atria to do? They tell the atria to contract. As that electrical signal moves from the SA node to the AV node, the walls of the atria contract. Now it's in the AV node. It's going to send the signal down this one branch. Somebody named it after themselves. Not Purkinje. Bundle of His. It's not his. That guy's last name is His. Bundle of His. From there, it's going to go in this direction. See how this one's going to the right side? Oh, it doesn't go that far up. Sorry, brain farted. It stops there. And then this other one goes this direction and stops there. The one in blue is the right bundle branch. Going to the right side. What do you think the yellow one's called? Left bundle branch. You're going to see these abbreviations in the doctor's office. I'm okay if you use RBB, LBB. Totally okay with that because you're going to see those all the time. It is crucial that the signal goes down and it starts at this point down here. So the right bundle branches and the left bundle branches want to get that action potential down here because these fibers are going to send the muscle to contract from bottom up. Why is it important to start at the bottom up? It's like squeezing the toothpaste tube from the bottom up. You don't want your heart to be squeezed like a maniac squeezes a toothpaste bottle. You don't want to squeeze from the top. You want to squeeze it from the bottom up. Because if this starts to contract, the blood goes up and out. Those fibers in white, those are named after another scientist. And I apologize if I offend anyone, but I say it all the time. Named after some old white dude, because it's never some white lady. It's the way it is. Forgive me if I spell this wrong, because it's not a common name. They're the Purkinje fibers. That is the pathway that the electricity moves through to tell the walls of the heart to contract. When the Purkinje fibers, when they move the action potential through them, they tell the ventricles to contract. Fun fact, when I was 32, only then did this doctors discover I did not have a right bundle branch. I was born without it. They sent me to the hospital for 3-4 days, $250,000. MRIs, CAT scan, MRIs, CAT scan. What's wrong with you? It took Kaiser that long to send them my EKG from when I was 5 months old. Cardiologist looked at it, said, you can go home. You were born without it. You're not having a heart attack. You can be born with a lot of these parts and your heart will still work because the SA node sets the pace. The AV node can also set the pace. So if you're missing parts of your internodal branch, the AV node can still set the pace. The SA node will still tell your atria to contract. Okay. The way it works in my heart, the left bundle branch takes an extra 2 milliseconds to tell the right side. So an untrained eye wouldn't be able to see it. It's just like a 2 millisecond delay. 2 millisecond delay. That's all it is in between my left and right side of the heart when they should both contract together. Is that going to kill me today? No. Is that going to kill me in the future? I hope not. But it's fine. It is absolutely fine. I have to get stress tests every year just because my insurance always wants to raise my premium. But at the end of this day, when I do my stress test, they're like, nope, you're good. No increase to your premium. If you haven't done a stress test, they suck. To run on a treadmill, get your heart rate to close to 180 beats per minute. And then get an echogram, which is cool, done of the heart. So yes, I tell everybody that I was born with a broken heart. The SA node and the AV node, folks, those are the regions on the heart where your parasympathetic system dumps acetylcholine. What is acetylcholine going to do to your heart rate? It's going to slow it down. It's going to tell the SA node, slow down. That is where your sympathetic division is going to dump epinephrine and norepinephrine. What is it going to tell your heart rate to do if it dumps those on there? Speed it up. So those are the ones that directly receive the parasympathetic and sympathetic innervation to speed up or slow down. Makes sense. They're the pacemakers of the heart. Drop of blood. It's right here. How did it get in there? Is that the only way it can get in there? Don't forget. Go in the inferior or in there from the inferior superior vena cava. Where is it going to go to next? It's going to go through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. Which one's the right answer? Is it D? Okay, good. Need to be able to track a drop of blood through the heart. How does it go from one area to the other? Is that blood oxygenated or deoxygenated? Deoxygenated. How is it going to move through? How is it going to get oxygen rich? How is it going to go out? We're going to talk about that next. How does it get through the blood, through the tissues? 10-minute. The heart pumps blood. What do blood vessels do? What are you going to tell me? What do they do? They carry blood to the tissues. Is that all they do? So they are the highways of the blood. They move from the heart to the tissues, back to the heart, from the heart to the lungs, back to the heart, moving it all day long. The pulmonary circuit. You must recall the arteries are oxygen poor. We're going to talk about this next week. When they go to the lungs, oxygen enters the blood. CO2 leaves the blood. That is the major gas exchange that is happening there. Oxygen into the blood, carbon dioxide out of the blood at the lungs. So when the blood is returned to the heart, it is oxygen rich, and that is the pulmonary vein. When it goes to the rest of the body, the rest of the tissues, the systemic tissues, it goes from the heart to the arteries. This is oxygen rich. That blood is going to get to the tissues. At the tissues, oxygen is going to go into the tissues. CO2 is going to come out of the tissues, therefore making the blood, as it returns to the systemic veins, it's going to make it oxygen poor as it returns to the heart. I need you to understand what the difference between the systemic and the pulmonary circuit are. The pulmonary arteries, are they oxygen rich, oxygen poor? Where are they going to? Etc. The vessels of the body. This is showing the systemic circuit, by the way, not the pulmonary circuit. Which one is this one here? What blood vessel is that one? The aorta is classified as an elastic artery. Why is it elastic? It has a bunch of, folks, listen to this, elastic connective tissue, not elastic cartilage connective tissue, elastic connective tissue. It has a lot of it. Why? Because the blood is going to force out a lot of blood under a lot of pressure. Your artery has to be able to expand and recoil. It is a large artery that is elastic, has a major layer of elastic connective tissue there. Then it branches off to become other small arteries, and we call those smaller arteries muscular arteries. Why muscular arteries? They have a large area. Most of it is made of smooth muscle tissue. Smooth muscle tissue is also found in elastic arteries, but it doesn't make up most of the walls. In muscular arteries, most of the wall is made of smooth muscle tissue. So these are muscular arteries. Then it's going to travel into the next major type of vessel. This one directs the blood to the specific tissues that need the gas exchange. This one is called an arteriole. An arteriole. This is a very small vessel. Most of it is just layers of smooth muscle. And it has this inner layer. And if we recall, what are the inner layers of vessels? What is that type of tissue? Simple squamous. That's what it's pretty much mostly made of. There'll be other tissues in there. We'll talk about that in a little bit. This is very small compared to an artery. Then that's going to move it into the next major vessel. And this is the vessel where gas exchange happens. What are those vessels called where the gas exchange happens, folks? They are the capillaries. So the blood goes in as oxygenated in the capillaries, does gas exchange, the blood leaves the capillaries now that it's oxygen poor, and it's going to enter this next vessel as it returns. Now it's returning to the heart. This one has little to no smooth muscle. It's not a capillary. It's a what? Not a ventriole. It's a venule. Venule's job is to drain the capillaries, and it is drain. That is the appropriate word. Drain the capillaries and move it into the next vein. It's going to move it into this one. This is a medium-sized vein. What does it mean to be a medium-sized vein? It is less than 1 centimeter in diameter. That is less than 1 centimeter in diameter. That is a medium vein. That's going to move it into a large vein. Which one is the major large veins there? And what are large veins? Large veins are veins that are bigger. Oh, I did it the wrong way, didn't I? Shoot. Let's just write less than. This one is greater than 1 centimeter. So that is big. These are the major blood vessels that we need to familiarize ourselves with. Elastic arteries, muscular arteries, arterioles, capillaries, venules, medium-sized veins, large-sized veins. Arteries will always have a thick layer of smooth. Oh, that muscle got cut off. Sorry about that. So in the elastic artery, there's smooth muscle in there, but it makes like less than 40% of the wall. A large layer of the wall, an elastic artery, again, is going to be made of elastic tissue. Why do arteries have large layers of smooth muscles relative to the veins? Not to push the blood. We'll talk about this in a little bit. I need you to know a vasodilation and vasoconstriction. That's what the smooth muscle is for. And a muscular artery, 50%, if not more, is made of smooth muscle. Both of these move blood away from the heart. They can be oxygen rich if they're in the systemic circuit. They can be oxygen poor if they're in the pulmonary circuit. When I used to teach in the cadaver labs, things aren't blue and red or yellow. Students would always complain, everything looks the same color. Yeah, it does. So how do you tell the brachial artery apart from the brachial vein, apart from the brachial nerve? You would have to feel it. You would have to feel it and understand why it feels like it does. Nerves are solid. Blood vessels are hollow. Arteries have thicker walls. You would be able to feel it when you would pinch on the artery. Their walls are thicker in general when compared to veins. These are super thin. In a cadaver, they will collapse on themselves. Veins will collapse, arteries will remain open because they have more smooth muscle, more connective tissue to keep them open. Why do they need to be thicker? Arteries operate at high pressure, veins operate at very low pressure. You don't want to draw blood from someone's arteries. What's going to happen if you draw blood from someone's arteries? It's going to start gushing. You always draw blood from the veins, low pressure. So here we have the artery shown. Which blood vessel is that one? Which blood vessel is that one at the arrow? This one. That's an arterial. Which blood vessel is that? Look at how capillaries form networks. That is very important. Why do they form networks? To increase what? The surface area. More surface area, more diffusion. More diffusion, more gas exchange. What blood vessel is that one? Venule. Which one's this one? Vein. Veins operate at such low pressure. Don't forget that. Their pressure is so low, they have these extra structures that are not found in arteries. They have venule valves. Why? The pressure is so low in the veins, you need valves so they move in one direction, or else it would go backwards. They keep the blood moving in one unidirectional flow. Pressure is too low. Valves will not be found in arteries. When you look at the histology, which of these is the artery? One or two? One. Thicker walls, they remain open. Veins, thin walls, thin structures, they will collapse on themselves. It's collapsed on itself, even in the histology. Arteries and veins, just like the heart, have 3 layers. Here we go. The internal layer. The dark one. That's pretty much made of smooth, simple squamous. The dark tissue is all simple squamous. The internal layer is called, on both of them, the tunica interna, the internal layer. This layer right here, and it's really tiny in the vein, is the second layer, the tunica media. The tunica media is primarily going to be smooth muscle. Then you have the outer layer. Tenley goes out to here. You have the outer layer. The outer layer is another tunic. It is called tunica externa, the external layer. Okay, that one's going to be primarily made of dense, regular connective tissue. If it's really dense, that's why it's shown darker in the arteries. That's what prevents it from collapsing. You can see that's not found in the vein. That's why one of the reasons the vein collapses on itself. All of this space in the middle is called the lumen. That is where the blood flows. That's the lumen. The lumen on this one is closed up. It's collapsed. That's where the blood flows, through those blood vessels. Arteries have thicker walls, folks. So important. Why? They operate under high pressure. It's much thinner. It's made of different materials. Less collagen. Question? Correct. Number one's the artery. Number two's the vein. You'll look at this in histology in a couple of, well, it might be too late by then. All arteries elastic arteries? No, which is the primary example of an elastic artery? The aorta. Most of the rest of the arteries are all muscular arteries. Do arteries carry oxygenated or deoxygenated blood? The answer is yes. They carry both. You need to know which one it carries what. The arteriole's job is to move the blood moving through the artery and direct it to the capillaries. What the arterioles do is the arterioles have a small diameter. They have a small diameter. You're going to do this a lot. Hopefully in physio, you should. The diameter of a blood vessel changes the resistance of the blood flowing through it. So, smaller diameter reduces the pressure, slows the blood down a little bit, so it doesn't like overwhelm the capillaries. Then when the blood gets into the capillary, the diameter is so small here, the blood moves so slow through the capillaries because the pressure is very low. Why is it important for the blood to slow down while it moves through the capillaries, to do more gas exchange as it slowly moves through. It's going to go slowly. Here it's going like super fast. So the arterial not only directs the blood to the capillaries, it helps slow it down so it moves to the right speed as it enters the capillaries. Not only that, but the arterioles and the capillaries can control blood flow. Vasodilation, what does that mean? So it increases the diameter of the blood vessel. That is vasodilation, the diameter getting bigger. When you increase vasodilation, you increase the diameter, you increase the pressure, therefore you increase the blood flow. Vasoconstriction, what are you going to do there? The opposite. So what does that mean? You decrease the diameter, you decrease the pressure, you decrease the blood flow, decreasing it. When you do vasodilation of the arterioles, the blood flow through here slows down. Why would you want to decrease the blood flow through your capillaries? It doesn't really do that. Why would you want to decrease the blood flow? Not really. Has to do what we talked about in the last module. Start talking about that. Give me an example. During a fight or flight response, where do you want to decrease blood flow to? You want to decrease the blood flow to your stomach during a fight or flight response. If you decrease the blood flow to the stomach, where's the blood going to go? To your skeletal muscles. So by constricting, you're going to redirect blood flow. That's what happens here during vasodilation. So the arterioles can vasodilate. So can the capillaries. The capillaries, only a small portion of it has these smooth muscle bands. These are capillary valves. They're made of smooth muscle bands. If they constrict, guess what? No blood flow to this area. You reduce the blood flow to those capillaries so the blood can get redirected somewhere else. Because I spelt it wrong. I think I said vasoconstriction, but I spelled vasodilation. So the answer is no, I can't answer that. I goofed. Good call. I even wrote it in the same color. God. That'd be nice, huh? Capillaries come in 3 different flavors. These are called continuous or systemic capillaries. I can't remember which your book uses, to be completely honest with you. Capillaries are primarily made of simple squamous epithelial tissue. There's not much else to them. So this is one simple squamous cell shown in red. It is solid. It is thin enough that it's still gonna allow diffusion. So this one allows diffusion through the simple squamous. This one is mainly for gas exchange at the tissues. It is a continuous capillaries primarily responsible for gas exchange. Look at this one. There's the simple squamous. How is that simple squamous cell different from this one up here? It's perforated. What does that mean? It has holes. It has pores. This is called a fenestrated capillary. This one does diffusion, but it also does something else with those pores. This one is leaky. Leaky. What leaks out of the blood? From what? What literally leaks out of the blood through those pores, folks? Look, that cell's too big to go through that hole. What's going to leak out of the blood? What's going to leak out of the blood? What's the blood mainly made of? That's what's going to leak out of the blood. This is how the plasma leaves the blood and becomes interstitial fluid. This one allows the plasma to leak. This is actually what's going to let your kidneys filter your blood. This type of capillary, fenestrated. Look at this one. This one, I can't even tell where one ends and one begins. This one, we're going to say has huge holes. Those are called sinuses. They're huge. They're not little pores. This is a sinusoid capillary. Those pores are so big, cells can leave. This is how your white blood cells get into your tissues and become T cells, B cells, NK cells, macrophages, mast cells, etc. So there are 3 different types of capillaries, and they permit different actions at different organs. Most places will have all 3, but to varying degrees, because they have to have white blood cells get into them, right? Your brain only has pretty much continuous and very few fenestrated. Very few. Your lymphatic system has a bunch of fenestrated and sinusoid. We'll talk about that next week. They do exchange with blood vessels. We'll talk about that next week. We say the venules drain the blood. Folks, the pressure is so low in the capillaries that the blood has to drain. At this point, the pressure is probably like, hold on. What is your blood pressure here at your brachial artery? 120 over 80 millimeters of mercury. At this point, it's probably 3/2. It's almost nothing. So low. So low. So that's why we use this word drain. It is so low that the blood might actually go backwards. And again, that's why you have those valves. So when the blood squeezes through, it stays here. And then it'll stay in the next area and the next area. So it slowly makes its way back to the heart. Your veins operate somewhere between 10, just because they're a little bit bigger. The diameter is bigger. That's the only reason they operate just a little bit higher than venules. But it's low at the veins. So from the veins, it goes into a medium-sized vein. Again, all that means is it's less than 1 centimeter in diameter. Large veins, they're greater than 1 centimeter in diameter. That's it. It's all about the size. The walls are about the same thicknesses. Just the diameter is the only thing that's really different. What do I mean by diameter? This part. That's the only thing that's different between large and small veins. What's fascinating is because veins operate at such low pressure, there needs to be more of them. So all the blood in your body, how much blood does the average person have in their body? About 6 liters. You guys are young. Out of the 6 liters, most of the blood is going to remain in your veins. More than 50% of your blood is going to remain sitting in your veins. Why? The pressure is so low. It takes a lot more effort to get it back to move into the heart. What do you have to do to help your blood circulation? You have to walk. Every single time you contract your leg muscles, that squeezes the blood through the valve. The valve closes behind it. It helps return the blood to your heart. It helps with your blood flow, especially the ones in your feet, because that is fighting the most gravitational force. People who don't walk, guess where they're going to have poor circulation late in life? To their legs. They're going to have issues with their legs. Walking, and I mean walking. How many steps should you be getting in a day in the United States? What do places like Norway, Denmark say? 16,000. I would say fappy. Right? Fat and happy. Yes, you need to get these steps in. And I remember in 2004, I read a paper. The title of the paper is 18 is the new 60. What does that mean? 18-year-olds in the year 2000 were getting as many steps as 60-year-olds were in 1980. Yeah, why? Because of this damn thing. And it's only gotten worse. And it's a big, big concern for the medical. What's going to happen to those kids as they grow up? It's going to be a problem. A big, big problem. Medical field's probably happy. Pharmaceutical companies are probably thrilled. But they don't care about people. Get your steps in, folks. It goes in one direction from the capillaries. Where's the blood going to go to next? It goes into the venules. It does not go backwards. Pressure is really high here. Pressure is high here. Pressure is less high here. Pressure is low here. Fluids always move in the directions of high to low pressure. Always. High pressure to low pressure. That's what's keeping it moving in one direction. Then we run into problems at the venules and veins. That's why you got to get your steps in. Is the pulmonary vein deoxygenated? Sorry, can't read. Pulmonary vein is the one example of a vein that is oxygen rich. It is returning the blood from the lungs. Therefore, it is oxygen rich. General blood flow. The pulmonary arteries are going to move the blood into the lungs. That's where the gas exchange happens. The pulmonary veins are going to return the blood. It's oxygen rich to the heart. The heart's going to send it out to the body. It's going to go to things like your brain, your lower limbs. We're going to have to understand this generic blood flow. In your reading guide, I mentioned which blood vessels I'm going to hold you accountable for. There's a few of them, and it's different from the lab. So make sure you keep an eye on those. There are going to be some major arteries of the upper body that I need you to be familiar with. We're going to start from the heart. This branch, that little short branch is your ascending aorta. Everyone's like, why did they name that part? Folks, that's the part that operates under the highest pressure because it's so gosh darn close to the heart. A lot of aortic aneurysms are going to occur there as we age. Fun times. What is this region called? Aortic arch. And then it's going to go down and it's going to go behind the heart. All of this, look how far down it goes. Stops right there. That is your descending aorta. All three parts are technically the aorta. At the at the aortic arch. This is where it gets fun. You have 1, 2. Let me change this color because I don't like the way it showed up. 1, yellow 1 and 2. Let me go, what color? Oh. 1, 2, and where's this one? 3. Coming off of the aortic arch. The one that goes to the right, the one that's in that sky blue. Coming off of the right is your brachio. What does brachio mean? Arm. Cephalic. What does cephalic mean? That is your brachiocephalic artery. That artery is going to go to the arm and the head. It's going to branch to go to the arm and the head. That one's only on the right side. There is no left brachiocephalic artery. The yellow one is going straight to the head. You see how it leaves the aortic arch and goes straight to the head? That one is your common, technically your left common carotid artery. It's going to the head, common carotid on the left. This one is your right common carotid artery. Left common carotid artery comes straight off of the aortic arch. The right common carotid artery branches off of the brachiocephalic artery. The one in lavender. That one is your left. It's going to the clavicle, so it's called the subclavian artery. Eventually, that's going to go and become the brachial artery. The right subclavian branches off of the right brachiocephalic artery. Only the right side has this extra artery called the brachiocephalic artery. So that means the left side has one less artery coming off of the aortic arch. And it's silly, but this is why we wear our wedding rings on our left hand. Because it's closer to the heart, more direct route to the heart. How cute is that? There's one less artery on the left side. Okay. Those are the main ones on your list. Yes. It eventually becomes the brachial artery. That's the one that you measure your blood pressure from. Actually, I don't remember if I put that one on your list. I might have, because you measure your blood pressure from that one. So yes, because of the brachiocephalic artery, it does matter if you measure your blood pressure on your right arm or your left arm. It will matter. You're going to have higher pressure in your left arm. Because that branch reduces the blood pressure when it splits. The veins. The veins. What is this one called? Superior vena cava. What is this one called? Look how far down it goes. Inferior vena cava. Branching off up here, you have your right and your left brachio. So you have the right and left brachiocephalic vein. This one, there's a right and a left for the veins, not in the arteries. Because the draining, because of the pressure of the draining, so it needs to be different. Here, these are not carotid. These are your jugular veins. Don't call them carotid veins. Don't call it a jugular artery. They are different, that go to the head and drain from the head. This part that's going to the clavicle, what do you think that one's called? You have your right and left subclavian veins. Correct. So those are the major veins of the upper body. I believe those are the ones that I included on your list. It may include others, but I'll have you look those up. I don't remember. The hepatic portal system. The hepatic portal system. What does hepatic mean? Liver. So that means there is a portal that goes to the liver. What does a portal mean? This is a redirection of blood that's going to the liver. This is how it works. Here you have your aorta. The descending aorta is going to feed the blood to, let's say, the small intestines. What do your small intestines do for you? They absorb nutrients. Do you see those little white things? Those are the nutrients that are going into the blood. So the aorta supplies oxygen-rich blood to the small intestines. The small intestines uses that oxygen, so now it's oxygen poor, but it is nutrient rich after a meal. You do not want that blood that has a bunch of nutrients to go right to your tissues. It has to go to your liver first. This branch is your hepatic portal vein. That means the vein from the small intestines, from the stomach, from the large intestines, they're going to go into the liver. From the small intestines, the large intestines, from the stomach, they're going to go into the liver. That is what the hepatic portal vein is. It's moving the nutrient-rich, oxygen-poor blood into the liver. Because if your blood sugar, this is blood sugar, not the other thing. Your blood sugar is high. What is your liver going to do to it? It's going to convert it to glycogen. If your blood sugar is low, what is your liver going to do? Break down glycogen, increase your blood sugar. So it has to go to the liver first to adjust the amount of blood sugar before it is returned to the vena cava. This blood vessel is the hepatic vein. So you have the hepatic vein and the hepatic portal vein. The hepatic vein returns the blood from the liver into the vena cava. The hepatic portal vein moves the blood from the small intestines, from the stomach, and the large intestines, small intestines, stomach. These are the ones that are absorbing the nutrients, large intestines. It moves it into the hepatic portal vein, so those blood move into the liver before they get back into the systemic circuit. So you can adjust your blood sugar. This is the hepatic portal system. Blood flow in the womb. It always impresses me with how many people who are having children have a misconception, and they think that the blood from mom mixes with the blood from the baby. That is very inaccurate. What is the better word for the womb? What is the womb called? The walls of the uterus during pregnancies are going to become extremely vascularized. A lot of blood flow to the uterus. What is this structure called? That is the placenta. How is the baby getting its nutrients, its gases? What do you mean by through the placenta? Where is it coming from, though? There has to be diffusion. No exchange of blood. Diffusion between the placenta and the uterus. It's diffusion, folks. It is not exchange of blood. That could be extremely detrimental. It's all gas exchange happening between the uterus and the placenta. So this one, this blood vessel that is red, that means it is oxygen rich. Is that an artery or a vein? No. Why is it a vein? Because it's returning to the baby. That is the umbilical vein. It is oxygen rich. So the one that's blue is going away from the baby. That one is the umbilical artery because it's going away from the baby's heart. It's going to the placenta where it's going to get its gas exchange. Here's another example where the vein is oxygen rich and the artery is oxygen poor. They are messy. We're not going to get into it. But you have extra blood vessels when you're in the womb. Question 8. Which blood vessel moves deoxygenated blood to the liver, which is also super rich in nutrients? So make sure you know that. Deoxygenated blood moving to the liver from the small intestine, stomach, large intestines after a meal is going to be super rich in nutrients. The liver has to process those nutrients before the blood continues moving through your body. You have problems with that, you're diabetic. Name the vessel. Subclavian. Which one? Left subclavian artery. Okay. That is the one that is the direct connection to your ring finger. Okay, we're not done yet.